done by using multiple operator routing. So if I just say this particular information, particular step to this particular work basket, overall connected to this work basket can able to access this assignment. So we can able to make use of this OOTB approve or reject thing, or we can able to go for customized section and we can able to implement the things whatever we want. Okay, so once we approve it or reject it, so case will be completely resolved. Once it is getting resolved, it has to be moved out from the work list as well as the work basket as per the thing. As per the routing type, it has to be moved out of work list or it has to be removed from the work basket. And PRPC will be executing some OOTB activities in case of work list, that is to work list, and it will be executing one OOTB activity called to work basket. If any of the assignment has been routed to single operator, either in the work list or it has to be work list only. If it is routed to single operator, it will be created as an instance in assign-work list. Okay, and if at all the same assignment has been routed in the work basket, it has to be created as an instance in class called assign-work basket. So for sure, any of the assignment for sure should be like an instance in either of these classes. Okay, so this is what we have discussed. And once the task has been routed to any person, and if you want to have that to be completed in specified time, okay, if I just apply for a leave in my organization and if I want that to be completed or approved by manager in 2 hours or 3 days or anything, so if any task that has been routed, business will be expecting, not only business, any task has to be completed in certain time, so and so time. So in this kind of time scenarios, if you want to have this task to be completed, we will be going for SLA. Okay, SLA meaning service level agreement. Okay, so for everything, for every task, we can able to go for some SLAs. SLA is a rule which can be created under process category. So within this SLA, we will be having some time intervals. If I want this particular assignment to be completed in specified time, like 2 hours or 3 hours, what we have to do, we have to create one new SLA rule, and there we will be defining something like 2 hours. Okay, so within these 2 hours, once the assignment has been routed, okay, once it is moved to the work list or work basket, the corresponding team, the time will be started. So based on this time, if we define it like 2 hours or 3 hours, it has to be completed. If it is not getting completed in the specified time, then we have to make the necessary action. So the necessary actions might be sending a notification or the reminder, or we can able to send a customized mail asking him to look into that, or we can able to send an email to his manager looping him, or we can able to run one activity, or we can able to go for rerouting. So if the corresponding manager is not responding on that, or if he's in a certain leave or something, so if I want to have it rerouted after certain period of time, okay, so this will be one of the action. So everything will be calculated based on the SLA only. There will be one rule called SLA, that is service level agreement, where we will be defining our time intervals. Once this particular rule is called across any of the tasks, okay, it has to be done. If it is not being done in the specified time, we can able to take the necessary action. Okay, we can able to call these SLA rules from many places. So if I just click here, meaning we'll be getting all the things related to this particular assignment, right? So this particular assignment has to be routed to the work basket. That is what we are seeing, and there will be something called goal and deadline. Okay, if I just select here, we have to provide our SLA. So SLA is nothing but it has to be completed in certain goal. Okay, so let me create one sample SLA rule and show you what are all the things we can be giving in that, and from where we can able to call this. As I told you, SLA rule can be created under process category. This is the rule. Use something like sample. So create and open. So this is how SLA rule will be looking like. It will be having all the time intervals in terms of an goal, deadline, and past deadline. Okay, so once the SLA rule has been started, so this is our SLA rule, and here we will have to define the corresponding time intervals. Okay, once the time intervals are defined, if I call this SLA rule on particular task, so that task, whenever the task is getting started, or whenever the task has been initiated or the routed anything, So whenever the task is started executing, see this SLA will be starting working. So this will be having executed and it will be calculating the goal first. Goal meaning we have to complete this certain task in so and so time. So that will be defined in terms of a goal. Here if I just define something like 2 hours, let us say. So this has to be completed in two hours. If I have one new assignment routed to my manager, okay, as soon as it is reflected in his work list, this SLA will be starting calculating. So this SLA will be calculating for the next 2 hours. So as per this SLA, within these 2 hours, the goal should be reached. So the goal of this particular SLA is to, the goal of this routing is to, the particular assignment has to be finished in 2 hours. That is in the goal time. If it is not getting finished in the goal time, if we want to take some action, we can able to do here. So just if we click here, we can able to see some actions applicable. I can able to call one data transform, or I can able to call another flow, or I can able to advance the flow, or I can able to notify the assignee manager, and these are all things. If I want to reroute to the another person, we can able to go for transfer, or if we want to run the activity. Okay, so these kind of actions we can able to take if it is crossing certain time interval. So the time interval here might be goal, deadline, or past deadline. So these three are the time intervals for an SLA, that is service level agreement. Suppose if I just have one assignment routed at 4 p.m. today to my manager, and assignment will be routing SLA will be calculated exactly at 4 p.m. whenever it is getting routed. So if I just define goal as 2 hours, so the particular assignment has to be completed by manager in 2 hours. That is the expectation. Okay, so if it is not completed in 2 hours, I can able to go for some notification. So I can able to send one notification. Okay, so after 2 hours, it will be sending one notification to the customer manager, and it will be waiting for some more time as per the deadline. So if I just give deadline as 3 hours, it will be having some grace period of time here. So goal will be the time interval within which our assignment has to be completed. Even the assignment is not being completed within the specified goal time, it will be again waiting for the deadline time. If we are defining anything like deadline, it will be calculating for the next time interval, that is deadline. So this deadline, if we just give like 3 hours, so PRPC has to calculate this deadline from the assignment routing time, not from the goal time. Okay. If I have one assignment routed at 4 p.m. and within 6 p.m. I have to have this completed, that is my goal. If at all it is not completed by 6 p.m., it will be waiting for 3 hours for the next deadline. So this will be the grace time. So 3 hours meaning it will not be calculating from 6 p.m. That is important. So 3 hours will be calculated based on the assignment start time. Okay. So 4 p.m. is my start routing time, and 6 p.m. will be the goal time, and 7 p.m. will be my deadline. Okay. Within this deadline, we have to complete the assignment. So people will be getting confused that deadline will be calculated based on the goal time, but that is not true. So deadline time will be calculated from the assignment routing time. Whenever the SLA is getting started, from there deadline will be calculated. So here in this case, deadline here will be 7 p.m. Even after the 7 p.m., if the assignment is not completed, if we want to perform any action, we can able to go here. We can able to escalate it to his manager, notify his manager. Okay, so we'll be notifying himself, or we can able to notify the manager, or we can able to run one activity. That's up to us. Okay, and there will be something called past deadline also. Even this particular task has not been completed within deadline time, so it will be entering, SLA will be entering into a new interval zone called past deadline. So this will be considered as a high priority. Okay, even it has been crossed the deadline time. So here we can able to define the time limit also. So if I just define something like 1 hour or 4 hours, let us say, or 1 hour, let us. So what PRPC has to do? PRPC has to wait for 1 hour after the deadline time. Okay, it has to wait for 1 hour after the deadline time, and it will be performing the necessary action. Here we can able to reroute to another manager or transfer to the another person for the necessary action we can able to do. So we can able to understand here like SLA will be having 3 intervals, that is goal, deadline, and past deadline. So goal and deadline will be calculated whenever the SLA is getting started. So this will be having goal time within 6 p.m. and this will be having goal time within 7 p.m. Okay, so don't think that it will be calculating 3 hours after this goal time. So this deadline time will be calculated whenever the SLA is getting started. But past deadline, whatever the time we are defining it here, it will not be calculated from the SLA start date. It will be calculated whenever it has been reached to the deadline time. So we know the deadline time here will be 7 p.m. for us, and after the 7 p.m. it will be entering into the past deadline zone, and past deadline time will be given as 8 hours here. Sorry, 8 p.m. Okay, so past deadline will be calculated based on the deadline time after the deadline time, and deadline time and goal time will be calculated whenever the SLA is getting started. So based on the necessary time interval, you can able to go for necessary action. And there will be something called one here by default. So limit past deadline events. So if we want to have these events limited, we can able to have it here. Suppose if I just give something like 3, okay, meaning this past deadline has to be executed for 3 times in an interval of 1 hour. Clear, right? So considering the same example, for 4 p.m. if I have the routing started, 6 p.m. will be the goal time, and 7 p.m. will be the deadline time, and 8 p.m. will be the past deadline time. Okay, so in even at 8 p.m. if it is not getting completed, it will be taking one action. Okay, and it will be again waiting for 1 more hour, and it will be performing the same action. Again it will be waiting for 1 more hour, again it will be performing the same action. So here this past deadline is executing for 3 times. So whatever the number we are providing it here, the past deadline has to be calculated for those many times in a certain time interval. If I just given 2 here, okay, so after the goal time deadline time has been reached, it has to wait for 2 hours. So that is the past deadline time. Okay, and after 2 hours it has to run another, it has to wait for 2 more hours again, and after that it has to wait for 2 more hours again. So on a whole it has to calculate it for 3 times. Okay, so if I just have this SLA triggered on any of the assignment shape, then PRPC has to calculate this SLA for 5 times. So 1 time here, so with whenever it is reaching the goal time, it will be executed and it will perform the necessary action, and it has to be executed 1 time here, and here it will be executed for 3 times. So that is what we are mentioning here, right? So SLA rule will be executed for 3 times. So for these 3 intervals, total SLA time execution times will be 5 times here. So 1 time here, 1 time here, and 3 times here. If I just define 5 here, so this past deadline has to be executed for 5 times 1 interval, sorry, 1 hour each. So with 1 hour interval time. Okay, so for in each and every interval we can able to go for necessary actions. So that is what we can able to see here. Okay, so if at all, if we want to have this SLA started whenever the routing has been happened, okay, then we can able to have this like immediately. So whenever the routing has been started, if I just route my assignment to my manager, so as soon as it get routed, SLA calculation will be done. So SLA calculation will be started. If at all, if we want to have it sometime delayed, we can able to make use of this one. So here we can able to stop the SLA for certain period of time. So that can be done by defining some properties or by defining the time delayed also. If I just give time delayed, we can able to wait it for 2 hours. Or if I just use any of the property. So if I just use system date time property as tomorrow, so from tomorrow it will be getting calculated. Okay, so we can able to have this SLA started immediately, or we can able to have this SLA started some time delay or some property reference as well. So clear, right? And even for the goal calculations also we'll be having something. So if I just set with some property value, so if I just change from time interval to property value, this will be disabled. We cannot able to provide any values here. Here we have to define the property. So we can able to define some next day property, the next date time. So whenever the system date time is equal to property date time, then this goal time will be started. So remember that this time is different from this time. So if I just give something like a property reference here, and here also I'm trying to give some property reference. So if I just have this assignment routed to my manager, and if I want to have it to be calculated after half an hour, here that has to be defined here. So SLA starts executing after 30 minutes of time, whatever the time we are defining it here. SLA will be getting started after that time. So even after SLA is getting started, if we want to have the goal time weighted, we can able to define it here. Okay, so the goal time and the deadline time we can able to give the property references, but for past deadline we cannot able to give the property reference. We should be for sure giving the values only. Okay, for the goal and for the deadline we can able to go for property reference instead of we giving the direct values, and for past deadline we cannot able to define anything like that. We have to define only normal values. Clear, right? And if I just route this to my manager, and if we want to take, if we supposed to take some action, suppose tomorrow and day after tomorrow is my organization holidays, and that today at the end of the day if I'm routing this to my manager, so manager cannot able to take some action. I'm giving it SLA like 1 day. So goal I want to put it like 1 day, and deadline I want to put it like 5 hours, or here I can able to define something like this. Okay, so today we have already reached the end of day, and if I just route this to my manager, which if route to my manager, what he has to do here, for sure he may not take some action today. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow are the business holidays for me. Then if I just define it for 1 day, then he cannot able to take the action for sure. So there is no mistake from his end and he cannot able to take the action. So in that case we will be having this value calculated. If I just check this one, so for whomever the person we are routing, it will be PRPC will be just checking for their calendar. So the calendar, as per their calendar, he might be having like leave supplied, or he might be having something like an business holidays. So PRPC has to just check for these values. Okay, only calculated using business days. Okay, so for each and every operator there will be something called calendar. So if you just open operator here, so there will be something called calendar, so business calendar. And if you are having some planned leaves for the next week, you can able to define it here. So if we just define it here, it will be very useful for this SLA for the calculations. So if it is routed to you and if it is given by 1 day SLA, and if you are having 2 days holidays here, 2 days leave, scheduled leave, then PRPC will be calculating this goal after you come to the office only. Okay, as per the system date only, it will be considering these two as holidays, and it will be calculating our business holidays also, like normal organization holidays also. That has to be defined by business analyst in this calendar. So if we just open it here, we can able to see our business timings as well as my organization holiday plan, annual holiday list. Okay, so based on this SLA will be calculated. Clear, right? If you want to define new thing, we can able to change it. So it might be different from each and every operator, and based on this operator, okay, based on this operator timings only, this routing will be calculated. If you mark this, if you are not marking this, it will be just calculating the normal calendar days. So clear, right? Suppose if I just route this to my manager, uh, okay, so if I route this to my manager, what manager can able to do? Manager has to log in with his ID and he has to pull the necessary records. So if I just launch any of the manager portal, we know that under my work list, if it is routed to the work basket, he has to pick it from here, or if it is routed to the specific person, he has to pick it from the work list. Clear, right? Suppose if I'm just routing this one, and after 5 minutes of time another person is also routing, he's also raising one more leave request. Likewise, if he's getting some hundreds of leave requests per day, everything, all the things has to be stored here, and PRPC will be placing it, PRPC will be sorting these particular values in terms of an start time. So whatever the latest one, that has to be coming at the top. Okay, that is what PRPC is doing. So the latest one that will be putting at the top. If at all, if you want to make modifications, you can able to change the report definition here. This will be coming using report definition only. You can able to create the new report definition, and you can able to give it like an source to this particular table. So that is secondary. So as per the PRPC existing behavior, we can able to see all the work lists sorted in the descending order, meaning the latest one will be coming at the top. Okay, so if I just apply at 9 a.m. today, and some of my team members are applying it at 9 p.m. today, so manager just logs in at 9 p.m. now, he will be getting the latest one at the top. although the person who just logged it at 9 a.m. should be given as highest priority, right? Okay, but PRPC will not be calculating it. So PRPC will be just putting it everything in the as per the system date time only. And if you feel anything as an highest priority, then you have to provide something like an urgency. So within this SLA, there will be some concept called urgency. Urgency meaning based on the urgency value, the priority of this task will be mentioned, calculated. So here at the in each and every interval, we'll be having something called urgency here. So urgency meaning the priority will be getting increased. So if I just define something like 10, okay, and here if I just define something like 30, and here if I just define something like 50, so urgency value on a whole has to be calculated for 100. Okay, so if the urgency value is 100, it should be considered as in the highest priority. If it is not if it is not mentioned with any of the thing, it will be considered as a normal record only, the normal priority task only, and it will be sorted as per the timing what PRPC is doing here, as per the normal sorting, like as per the system date or creation date time, it will be sorting normally. If at all, if we have any of the tasks to be uh, completed uh, completed very urgently, we have to go for giving the urgency values definition here. So each and every time interval can be provided with some urgency values. So if we define it for, if we create or if we route one assignment at 4 p.m. and if this seems to be like an highest priority, it has to be completed within next to 5 or 6 hours. In that case, what you will be doing is you'll be putting the goal as 2 hours, and here in 2 hours we can able to mark this urgency as 40, let us say, or 20. So what PRPC has to do? PRPC has to mark this as an highest urgency compared to the other work list items here, and this will be putting out in the top here. Okay, this will be putting it at the top. So the here sorting will be done based on the urgency first. If the urgency is common for each and everything, it will be putting it as part of the creation data. Okay, so by default we have not given any of the urgency values defined. So that is the reason each and every work object ID will be sorted as per the latest thing. If at all, if I just create the uh, if I just route the particular item with an urgency value as 20 or so, okay, so then this should be given as a highest priority. So within this 2 hours, it will be given as priority 20. If suppose if the item is not completed within these 2 hours, it will be reaching the deadline time, right? Here we can able to give for 3 hours, meaning it has to be completed by 7 p.m. for sure. That is the expectation. Here you can able to increase the urgency value to 30. So on a whole, the urgency value of this particular item will be having a value this plus this. Okay, so now the urgency value will be calculated as a 50 now. So meaning urgency value is getting increased, priority should be increased. So that is the reason whatever the urgency value we define it here, that will be calculated to the existing one. So by default, PRPC will be having one property for this, that is PX urgency class for. So that will be having value like 20 whenever it is in this time. If it will be having a value like 30 whenever it is crossing the goal time. Okay, even if it is crossing the goal time, we want to have this like an urgency like 40, and if we want to have it like 3 times. So at even at 7 p.m. if this particular value has not been completed, so here as of now here urgency value will be like 50. Okay, so this will be kept at the top of the work lists here. Even if there is something like 70, even if there is any other item which is having work list like 70, sorry, priority like 70, so the first item will be shown with the highest urgency, that is 70, and the second thing will be shown with this one. Okay, so even after the deadline, if this is not getting completed, it will be entering into past deadline zone. Here again urgency value will be again calculated. So here it will be calculating it to 90 here. As of now here urgency value is 50, and it will be adding the 40 to that. So urgency value will be increased to 90 here. So that is for first time. Okay, for sure it will be shown at the top. And even for the first time this task is not completed, then it has to execute it for second time, right? So this has to be executed for 3 times. That is what the thing. And for the second time, it has to again calculate 40. Okay, so earlier it was 90, now it will be again calculating 40. So but it will not be having urgency value greater than 100. Even if it is greater than 100, PRPC will be calculating the PX urgency value as 100 only. It will be truncating the value to 100. Okay. For the third time, it will be again adding 40. It might be reaching almost 140 or 160, let us say. So, but it will be having the urgency value set to 100. So for sure, this will be shown at the top here. So based on the urgency values, this thing will be sorted. That is the first priority. If all the records are having equal urgency values, it will be pulling out based on the creation time. Okay. So if I just run the flow, any of the flow, so this is as part of new harness where we will not be having work object ID created. So if I just click on clipboard now, click on PO work page. So there will be one property called PX urgency work class. Okay, so this particular work item, that is work object ID, before creating the task only, it is setting the value like 10. Okay, so by default, each and every work object ID will be having the urgency value as 10. So that is what we are seeing here. So here, whatever the thing we are seeing, all these are sorted as per the time only, meaning each and everything will be having a default urgency value as 10. So that is what we are seeing here. So clear, right? So if I just open it here, and if I just go to clipboard, okay, so here this is the property PX urgency work class. For each and everything, the property like PX work class will be having value like 10. So before creating the work object ID only, the value is getting set to 10. Okay, so here we have to remember one thing. So before creating the work object ID, if any values are being set like py work ID prefix or anything, so that should be responsible because of py default data transform, if you remember. So let me open that once. So py default data transform will be running before the work object ID creation only, and we can able to have this all values set from there. So there should be one property like py work ID prefix, sorry, px urgency work class. So that should be called within this py default data transform. So this is responsible for setting of any of the properties before creating the work object ID. So are we having anything like px urgency work class? We are not having. We are not having here, but we are getting the value set before creating the work object ID only. Then you have to just check whether this is marked or not. If this is marked, PRPC has to execute the data transform in its parent class. In its parent class, there is something like px urgency work class. Here it is setting the value like 10. So this is the reason we are having px urgency work class as 10 for each and everything. If you want to set it to 0, you can able to do that. So for that, you have to save as this into our rule set, and here the value will be set to 0. Whatever the thing you want, you can able to do that. So clear, right? So by default, each and every work object ID or any task will be given with an urgency value as 10. And if we are trying to increase the urgency value because of this particular SLA, then priority will be changed. So once the priority is getting changed, this report definition, whatever the values it is pulling out based on the sorting, it will be doing based on the urgency values, not on the creation date time. Okay, so all these records will be having sorted based on the creation date time only. Why? Because each and everything will be given like an urgency value like 10. And if you feel that this is very important task, you can able to go for initial urgency also. Okay, so before creating the SLA, I mean before starting of this goal time, if you want to set some urgency value like 40, okay, so 40 by default within the goal time only, it will be having the urgency value like 40. After the goal time is completed, if you want to have the something, if you want to have some value set here, then we can able to give it here. Suppose if we are having work object ID routed at 4 p.m. And if you want to have this SLA calculated after a certain period of time, like half an hour, okay, so then as a PX urgency value will be calculated with 10 initially, and after half an hour we can able to have this urgency value like 40 increased further, so SLA will be having like 50. And if you want to have this to be delayed, goal time delayed for half an hour again, okay, so within that half an hour urgency value will be increased to 50, whatever the thing as per the existing. Once the goal time has been started, urgency value will be increased, okay. After this deadline, urgency value will be increased, okay. So on and whole, if it is having more than 100, it will be truncating itself to 100, and it will be considered as an highest priority. If I have 3 highest priority tasks, for each and everything we have 100, then again PRPC has to look after the creation date time, okay. So if at 9 a.m. one highest priority task like PX urgency work class is equal to 100 has been routed to the manager, and second one at 9 p.m., then second one will be shown at the top. So instead of manager picking up each and everything, what he can able to do is he can able to just have something like get next work. So if we just click on this, there will be one option called get next work for user as well as the manager. So if we just click on this, PRPC will be automatically calculating the best work out of all these values. If I have if I have 10 records, and based on the urgency value, PRPC might be pulling out the best one by clicking this one, okay. If I just click on get next work, PRPC will be pulling out the best value based on this particular work list or the particular work queue. I might be having the urgent task that has to be completed in the work queue also, right? And this is completely the this is completely work list. So or manager cannot able to open all the work baskets at a time, and cannot able to pick up the best thing. So here I might be having 100 records. Within this 100 record, I might be having two highest priority, and here I might be having 50 records. In here I might be having two priority. So he cannot able to go for each and everything and identify the best highest priority. For that, he will be just clicking on this one. If we click on this one, it will be automatically picking up the best priority one, okay. And there will be one option like within the operator level also. So within operator level, there will be one option called this one, get from the work queue first. So if this is selected, if manager himself is selecting this one, so if he's given manager access, he cannot able to make modifications. And if I want to make my manager to get the work list item first, if this is marked, if he's trying to click this option, then PRPC will be first looking out the highest priority from the work basket, not from the work list, okay. So that is what we are trying to do. So get from work list first. So PRPC has to get the best instance or the best highest priority from the work basket, okay. Once those are all done, it will be picking out from the work list. Clear, right? So this is all about SLA, and we can able to call this SLA from many places. Any doubts as of now?
Yes.
Uma, you also know? Okay. So we can.
Chandra, one second. Yeah, I'm clear. But when and where we will use these concepts, Chandra?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying now. So the application of this SLS, we can able to have it across the assignment level. That is what we are discussing, right? And we can able to have this SLA applicable for many things. So once we create the SLA rule, so this is the SLA rule. If I just define this SLA rule for certain period of time, I mean for certain intervals within certain urgency, we have to define this particular SLA rule on something, on somewhere. Okay, so this is just creation of a rule. We have to refer this rule somewhere. So this is not a declarative rule for not referring. We have to refer it somewhere, that's for sure. So we can able to refer it in one assignment. If I just refer it in one assignment, whenever that assignment has been routed, or whenever the operator started working on that, not only working, if it is routed to the specific work list, or if it is routed to the work basket, if this SLA is being called, it will be calculating the time from them. Okay, it will be calculating the initial goal time, and if that is crossing, it will be taking the necessary action as per the definition defined here, and after that you will be reaching the deadline, it will be taking the necessary action, and it will be calculating this one. So this particular SLA rule has to be called in many places. So the one thing is we can able to call it across assignment level. So if I just click on any of the assignment, okay, so there will be something called goal and deadline. So if I just click here, select this one, we can able to have the value defined directly, or we can able to go for one new SLA rule used. We can able to create the new SLA rule and we can able to define the SLA rule here. Or if we want to define the normal things, we can able to define it here. So the advantage of we creating separate rule here is we can able to have goal, deadline and pass deadline. So if I'm not creating the rule, we will not be having pass deadline option. See here, we'll be having only goal interval as well as the deadline interval. So pass deadline interval will not be there if you're not creating the separate rule. We can able to create the separate rule like this and we can able to call it from here. So then we'll be having some extra options. We will be having pass deadline option as well as we will be having some options to call an activity, to call an data transform or to rerouting. So many options will be there. But here we will not be having all the options. We'll be having only notifications to the managers or the operators. Okay. If this particular goal and deadline time defined in this particular assignment, whenever this assignment has been routed to the work list or work basket, this time will be getting calculated. Here we can able to have the initial urgency value only. Okay, clear, right? So this is one application. If at all, if we want to have complete process is nothing like a flow. If we want to have the whole flow to be completed in certain period of time, so this is what we're discussing for only assignment. And if we want to have the complete process to be completed in certain period of time, just click on this process and there will be something called service level agreement. Here we should be creating the separate rule and we have to call it here. Okay, so based on these intervals, time intervals, this particular process has to be calculated in certain time. We can able to have this SLA applicable for the assignment level or across the flow level also. Flow is nothing but a process. So within process we can able to have multiple assignments, right? Okay, so suppose if I'm just if I want to have something like in background check verification for my new employee joined in my organization, then there will be one separate flow running for the background check people. Okay, so once the onboarding has been started, so background check has to be initiated. So once the onboarding has been started, there will be one new flow triggered for them and they have to complete all the necessary assignments within that particular flow in certain period of time. I want to have everything to be checked, his basic details background check, his educational check and his medical check or the criminal police check. So these kind of things will be there for a background checking. So if each and every assignment has to be completed in certain period of time, meaning this whole process has to be completed within 2 days or 3 days, so then we can able to define this particular SLA across flow level. Okay, so within this flow level, if I have 5 or 6 assignments, those all are to be completed if we define it across flow level. Clear, right? And we can able to call this SLA across stage level also. So if I just click on stage here, we'll be having something like SLA. Okay, so within one stage we can able to have multiple process. So this is one flow and we can able to add one parallel flow also. Okay, and parallel process, anything. So if I just have 3 processes within this particular stage, and if I want to have all these processes completed, whenever stage 6 is completed, if you will be entering into stage 7. Okay, so the stage 7, whenever it is getting started, SLA will be getting calculated. So if I want to have all these 3 processes completed within certain period of time, we can able to define this SLA rule across stage level. Clear, right? And if you want to have the whole case to be completed, if you want to have this whole case, I mean the work object ID whole thing, so starting from customer registration to manager approval and as well as the background check and as well as the necessary things, everything, if the customer if the onboarding or anything work object ID has to be completely done within certain period of time, okay, then we can able to define it across the flow level, sorry, that across the case level. So for that, go to settings and there will be something called goal and deadline. Here we will be having one option. If we just click here, we will be having goal time and deadline time, but we will not be having anything like an pass deadline here also. If we are not creating the rule, we will not be having multiple options. So here only goal and deadline will be given and basic urgency values and notifications or the action kind of thing that cannot be taken here. So clear, right? So if we want to have this new flow rule used, sorry, if we want to have this SLA rule to be created, we can able to define it across the assignment shape. Here we cannot able to use the existing one also. We have to make use of this goal and deadline only. Path deadline will not be applicable across stage level, case level. And we can able to have this SLA rule completely applicable across the assignment shape. That is what we are saying. We can able to go for goal deadline, or we can able to go for new SLA creation also, new rule also. This can be applicable across the process level, or we can able to have it applicable across the stage level. So clear, right? Now we understood, now, Huma?
Yes, Chandra.
So let us work on one thing where after completing of the sixth stage, so whenever user clicking on submit button in this flow, it will be routed to my HR team. So here it will be routed to the work basket, right? So whoever are connected to this particular work basket can able to access this, and this particular item has to be completely done in certain period of time. Okay, so for that, let me define one SLA rule for this, and let me define SLA rule here. Okay, once it is completely done, it will be automatically routed to the manager. Suppose if it is not being done in specified period of time, I want to take some action. Okay, what can be the action? I can able to send one mail, or I can able to route to this another person. Okay, so this kind of actions will be done. So let us create one SLA, and here I will be giving goal time as 1 minute only. For testing purpose, we cannot able to wait for 2 days or 2 hours. So even in the real time also, if you want to just check whether SLAs are working fine, you have to set the goal time as 1 minute and deadline time as 2 minutes. So you cannot able to save the SLA if goal time is less than deadline time. So if I give it like 2 hours, and if I give it like 1 hour, we cannot able to save it. Okay. Destination value cannot be tracked. What is it? Okay, that's okay. So it will be throwing some error. As I told you, deadline time will be calculated from the SLA creation time, SLA start time, as well as goal will be calculated from the SLA start time only. Okay, goal cannot be less than, goal cannot be more than deadline time. So that is the reason we have to give this as an highest value. So even for the testing purpose, even if your SLA is working fine or not, what you have to do is you have to make it for 30 seconds or 1 minute. So after 1 minute, if it is taking necessary action, you can able to do that. You can able to check that. You cannot able to wait for 2 hours or 3 hours. Once that is working fine, you can able to give the necessary timings. Okay. So let me create one SLA rule, and that SLA rule has to be calculated on this particular assignment shape, and it has to be completed within 1 minute of time. If it is not getting completed within 1 minute of time, I want to take the necessary action of routing this particular assignment to my op manager directly. Okay, I'm trying to go for rerouting. So you can able to go for any of the action. Let me go for rerouting. In this case, it will be routed to the manager immediately after 1 minute of time. Okay, so let me create the new SLA. So let me refresh this. Whatever the changes we're making here, I don't want to apply. So let me refresh it. So I'm trying to create new SLA rule, that is